evening and welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I'm your host, Lauren Meadows. It's Tell It Like It Is Tuesday. The Florida Gators dominate the Oklahoma Sooners at home. Could this be the team to cut down the nets in March? We'll ask that and more with Rob Brown of SEC Sidelines, and then we'll be joined later by Zach Goodall of 247 Sports to discuss the Gator staff changes. Will Harris is out. Deron Wilson is in. Is that good for the Gators or not? It's Tell It Like It Is Tuesday / Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday
On the Buddy Martin Show. Let's do it.
Tacos.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I'm your host, Lauren Meadows, joined by my co-host, partner in crime, Rob Brown of SEC Sideline Sports, Brendan Martin, executive producer and all things great at Gator Bait Media. How you guys doing tonight? Cold. Yeah, you got a little snow up there, huh? Tell the folks about it.
It's probably get about 5 inches tonight in Memphis, and I'm telling you, you walk out that door, it's about 30-mile-an-hour wind. It's of course, Brendan growing up in Wyoming and Colorado and the Alps, this is like
I wish I did all the things that Rob said that I did. I was never in the Alps, but definitely Colorado.
Well,
Rockies or whatever,
Rockies,
all those mountains.
Yeah,
Rockies.
There's a mountain.
Well, it's the Tuesday night edition. We call it Tell It Like It Is Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. It is usually Taco Tuesday because that's when the wife goes to karaoke with her friends at a certain restaurant. We may try to get them as a sponsor, so I won't name them yet. But it is Tell It Like It Is Tuesday, and I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, we got some things going tonight. Basketball, you had Florida dominating Oklahoma, kind of carrying on basically where they left off, just rolling right now up to number 2 in the country. And then in maybe a mild upset, number 21 Mississippi State dominates number 7 Texas A&M. I mean, we talk about it every Tuesday. It's rough in the SEC, Rob.
It is a sausage grinder, man. There's no night that you can take off. And then I'm watching now South Carolina about to tee it up. And those are the 2 bottom teams in the league. You put them in a lot of country and they're middle of the pack, maybe, top 1/3. And I look at Florida, and we talked about it this morning, and I've talked about it with some friends during the day. Micah Handglotton taking off his red shirt and coming back. That's a sign that that's an all-in buy-in. You talk about the NIL and all these distractions you want. We're a sanctuary show. We're talking about the games and the players that play them. But when you do something like what Micah Handglotton did, that's big. That's a statement. And Todd Golden has built a culture at Florida in 3 years that's looking and staring in the face of a number 1 seed. That is really hard to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at just the way that they play, the way they share the basketball. Jimmy Dykes was on the call with Carl Ravitch and just remarked at how well this team shares the basketball. And at this time of year, if you have a team that's playing unselfish and really getting after it on the defensive end, I mean, you start to feel it in a lot of ways. And Rob, I know you were probably switching back and forth between the Mississippi State game and the Florida game, but this looks like a team, like you said, that understands the assignment, understands where they could be, the first weekend of April. And I mean, really looking at that trip to San Antonio. And I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, I think that now you're starting to see even your hometown Auburn Tigers with the win there down at Coleman Coliseum this past weekend, and what Florida's been able to do. Almost, is it fair to say that those two teams are starting to separate themselves even from the rest of the pack?
Well, I mean, Florida beats Auburn in Auburn when Auburn's number one. Auburn goes out the next week, beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa. When they were number one in the coaches poll, Auburn was number one in the writers poll. So now we know Florida and Alabama still have to play this year. So I think the SEC, here's Lauren, I'm going to throw this out for everybody. Our guard play is what March is all about. Danny Hurley and UConn, what their best player was out for a long time, came back on the road at Creighton and scored 38 points. Those guards, Rick Pitino, St. John's, they're like 20th in the country, whatever. Do you want to play them early on? I mean, we're myopically focused on the SEC, but give me your top 5 players in the league right now. And I ask you, how many of them are guards? When you tell me, I'll know it, but give me a top 5.
In the SEC?
Yeah.
I would say, well, you got to go Janai Broome. And I would give Walter Clayton Jr. a nod. I would say, man, I would say Sear at Alabama. I mean, he's solid, does a great job. Was it Pettiford at Auburn?
And the point guard,
the true point guard. I like the point guard from Oklahoma, although he had an up and down night tonight. And there's a big kid at I'm trying to think. Is it Texas A&M?
Well, I would say, what about Zakai Ziegler at Tennessee?
I'm not impressed. I'm gonna tell you the truth. He's a runt. Yeah, I mean, I think if he goes against, I mean, he's a good player, but I mean, I would take Sears and Clayton before I took him, and I like Pettiford over him, and I think Pettiford actually outplayed him when they played there in Auburn when we were in town for women's hoops, but. I mean, it seems like it's a guard heavy league. I mean, you think Florida at one time had 4 guards and Thomas Houck on the floor tonight. I mean, I just think it's a guard heavy conference. Who you got?
I mean, I picking my top 5. I guess I'll say Janai Broome. He's good. He's really good. Walter Clayton, Zakai Ziegler, Josh Hubbard.
Hubbard. That's
Mark Sears. We had Jake Wimberly on this morning from Jackson, Mississippi, and Josh Hubbard's dad owns a business in the building where the radio station in Jackson is. And I think Josh, as he goes, Mississippi State can really roll. And I just think about the guards, Mm-hmm. How many people? Okay, Florida. 5 big, tall guys. How many teams can say that, not just in the SEC, but among the top teams in the country? And then you throw in Walter the way he's playing, and he transferred from Iona, from the Gales. Mm-hmm. That's what Florida problem. They're not a good matchup from him.
Right. Not at all. Brendan, what do you think? We, you kind of silent, but you kind of shook your head. Yes, no. What are your thoughts on the Gators as a basketball team?
Well, I mean, I think Florida's real good, and I've been saying the same thing all along. I think they're real good, just like any team that is really coached well. As their fundamentals have been phenomenal. They do things that I don't know what happens when you get to this level or you get into the NBA, but you stop playing defense, you stop rebounding, you stop doing the fundamentals, right? We talk about it in football all the time. Hey, they struggled last week in arm tackling. They got to go back to tackling drills, right? Go back to fundamentals, go to the source. And it just seems like that has been their core all season. In every big win, they last time when they just played Auburn, they had tremendous rebounding off the boards all night. I just think this Florida team is extraordinary, and it's nice seeing him. How you say his name? Hamgladen. Hamgladen. My dyslexia. That's a fun one. But I think even though he's just getting his legs, but like Rob said, for him to burn his red shirt to come back. He knows he could potentially be playing back in San Antonio, and all these things. I think, that's the writing on the wall to me, is to show that not only we think they're good, but they think they're good, and their best players think it's good enough to want to be a part of this year's run. I think Florida could be extraordinary. I hate to put the cart before the horse because the SEC tournament is going to be as good as March Madness this year.
Yeah,
but I think Florida could. It really is going to depend on how they get seeded, obviously. But they continue to win. They get up at the higher seeds. I think it's going to benefit Florida, and I think they're doing it. 70, 80%, 70% of their team. Still got 2 injuries, so. I think they're extraordinary, but I'm a huge Todd Golden guy. I have been since he got here, and I think he's proven his worth this season and since he's been here because he's done it so fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been remarkable, and they've done a great job. I mean, you think about it, finding guys like, Alex Condon, getting him from Australia, Thomas Howe, definitely, obviously, under-recruited guys, and then identifying guys like Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, Elijah Martin, and then the development of a guy like Denzel Aberdeen, who's actually recruited by Mike White, but hung in there. And he's basically the 6th starter between he and Houck. I mean, it's really going to come down to those two who, basically is going to be the 6th man of the year. I mean, in the conference. I mean, they're both playing great. And someone asked last week, should Aberdeen start, in place of Martin? Or I don't know how they're going to handle that once Martin kind of gets back. They both played really well, but it's almost like it's interchangeable. Then it doesn't matter who you start. They're playing about the same number of minutes. And, I wanted to ask, though, Rob, and this is something that, and about this because you followed it. We all have. Right now, they have the Gators as a number 1 seed in the West. They play the pods in the first couple rounds, but then the regional round is out in San Francisco for the West. And to me, that's the one issue that I have with possibly Florida making the Final Four, just because should there be a team that's a little closer, is in the mix, was maybe in that 2 or 3 line, maybe a 4 line is a Cinderella story, is going to pack it into that Chase Center. Florida comes in the number 1 team in the country, but it's almost like a super road game for the Gators, because I know a guy that really follows the Gators immensely, is planning to go to the Final Four, but he's not going to San Francisco. Already told me. He said, so if they're in the West, what does that mean, for the Gators? Could that be the one hiccup for them having to make that trip out West, and then a team Cinderella kind of coming in, and now they got everybody in there, like a St. Mary's or somebody like that brings all the crew?
If I'm a coach and I'm a player on that Florida team, that gets me excited. I use that as an advantage, because last year, you look at what Bruce Pearl and Auburn did, they did it wrong. Okay, they went out there with the wrong mindset against a Yale team, Chad Baker, Mazzara. Look, they know how to bait that guy, and he got a flagrant 2, and he's out. So you do the flip side, okay? It's bad enough, but when men whine, it's unacceptable, okay? I can't handle it. You start whining as a coach about where you're playing, your players are watching you. Remember, they're all 19, 20, and 21. You've been 19 and 20 before, and you're also 39 or 40. They can only say they've been 19 or 20. That's what Todd Golden's got to do. He has a mindset in year 3. He's turned the Florida basketball program around quickly. It took Bruce Pearl a long time. Because I mean, Auburn was so bad when he got there. Tony Barbie was arguably the worst coaching hire in Auburn history, besides Sonny Galloway and Brian Harsin. But I think Golden. Remember, he came to Florida from San Francisco as the coach of the Dons.
Yep.
He will embrace that, and he'll get a bunch of friends of his to go there and wear Florida stuff. Dan Bond will be there.
Yeah,
well,
no doubt.
Well, what I was going to say is that first of all, Todd Golden is a San Francisco guy. Secondly, great teams love going on the road, a la Auburn. I mean, you went and beat the number 1 team in the NCAA on the road this year. Hammered them. I don't think you're worried about going on the road. I think the great teams play great on the road because they love the challenges. And not to quote Dad, a la Buddy Martin, but he did, mention a couple of weeks ago that did this drama and things that happened with the allegations early on in the year with Todd Golden. Once it was cleared, did that, embolden this team? Did it make them stronger earlier because they went through something like this? And I think it did. I think this team is getting better every game, and they're peaking at the right time. And I think right now they are really you don't want to play them at the O-Dome, and you sure as hell don't want them to come into your house.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of big time, the folks at Meldon Law won't back down. The only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, proven a skilled injury lawyer since 1971. It's that time of year again. The Meldon Law folks are going to be there, to answer all your law questions. If they can help you with anything from personal injury, criminal defense, or other items, they'll be there for you. But if not, they'll be able to refer you to somebody that can help you with your legal needs, i.e. estate planning and other issues. But most importantly, the people at Meldon Law have really embraced the Florida community, with the Gainesville community, with a lot of giveaways for softball tickets. It's baseball season now. I know they have a big promo going for the Miami series that's coming up here shortly, where you get the full weekend of tickets and just a great experience. And you'll get to meet the good folks at Meldon Law. They got the spinny wheel always with free giveaways at basketball and those kind of things. I mean, just really appreciate what Meldon Law has not only done to help the Buddy Martin show, but also the Gainesville and the Florida Gator community. Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Huge basketball.
What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Jeffrey's a huge basketball guy.
Oh yeah, huge basketball.
Huge basketball.
He's huge. I mean, I've seen him he's everywhere, man. He's gymnastics, eating them peanuts. He's doing his thing. I mean, and I'm gonna tell the folks, if you've never had an opportunity to meet Jeffrey Meldon, I mean, Brendan, you can echo this. Just a great guy. He and his wife. Truly. Very approachable.
His son, Gary.
Yeah, absolutely. I sat with him in an event a couple weeks ago.
Good dude.
Really, really good people, and just appreciate all that they've done for the Florida Gator community, no doubt. So, as we move into, not just basketball, and basketball will be there in the spring, but around the same time that Florida will be making their run, it will be the spring ball season. And the Florida Gators, we're going to have Zach Goodall on here in a minute to discuss some of the staff changes and what he's heard going on with the Florida Gators. But it's spring ball time. And Rob, you keep your ear to the ground there at Auburn. I think they've, recruited well and I think want to try to turn the corner there. But the Florida Gators, the quarterback is in place. The roster seems to be improved. I think they were made better by guys like Jake Slaughter and Austin Barber coming back. Is this a team, 9th ranked in the country? Is this a team that is ready to take the next step? Can they stand pat and be one of those 12 teams in December that has an opportunity to make a play for the national title. Ninth ranked, do they hang in there? Or is it a situation again where they take out Long Island, they take out South Florida, and then that big trip to Baton Rouge with potential future number 1 draft pick Garrett Nussmeier kind of goes to work on?
First off, I don't understand why everybody thinks Garrett Nussmeier is such a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a Heisman Trophy quarterback. Brian Kelly, we talked about it on the show this morning. Buddy was, asking Jacques Doucet, WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge, was on the show about what do LSU people really think about Kelly. Okay. They've lost 5 openers in a row. And Jacques talked about how they're daydreaming back to that 2019 team. Right now, I would say Florida goes on the road and smokes LSU. I wouldn't worry about that game. I'm telling you, it's logo fever. Florida, what happened with Florida was when they lost that Georgia game, tied up 20-all with 7 minutes to then Lagway not there. I think Georgia realized, the players on the Florida team realized what Billy Napier and those coaches were saying is y'all are a good team. And they believed that. And they won the last 3 games. Who knows what would have happened in Texas if Lagway's healthy? And you took Georgia to the last 7 minutes. Okay, so here you are a year later. No, everybody's going to have tape on Lagway. But no, I think Florida, I've got them I'm going to pick them to win 10 games straight up going in the next year. But if they're 10-1 at the end of the year, they'll beat that train wreck Florida State. They'll beat them like a drum.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see how Florida State's going to turn their thing around. Not with Florida. Florida's ascending in the money league, the SEC, and Florida State, they don't have the money.
Right. Well, the one thing I think
the
that,
Gators
like
have
yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt. And I think that the thing about Lagway is we haven't really seen the feet of Lagway in use yet. And I think that's where that could be the silver lining or the wild card when you talk about scouting and things like that is when a guy can affect the game with his feet. Yeah. We know the arm talent is there. That's tough to plan for. It's tough to adjust to. And I think if he can round into shape with some new receivers and some guys at some different positions, I think Tony Livingston at tight end is going to start to emerge among others. And, you can see Aiden Mizell come along. I think that's one of the things where, I think we, could see Lagway take a big step because they haven't utilized the feet yet. And that's the great equalizer sometimes, because when things do break down and now you got to go tackle that big dog in space. I mean, you've seen it with a couple guys that with Franklin and Cam, obviously at Auburn. I mean, it just stresses the defense immensely there.
Well, Lauren, what you got to have at Florida, as much pressure as there's going to be for Lagway to produce, going to have a healthy stable of wideouts. You're going to need depth in the running back room just to take, for a change of pace. But that's going to be the key. But I mean, man, we were hypercritical of Billy Napier last year after the Miami loss, the Texas A&M loss. And you know what? Most programs are so impatient in today's world, they'd have fired a coach after 3 years. And now you got a coach going into his 4th year with a really solid quarterback and nobody, think about it. Who closed stronger in recruiting at the end last year than the Gators did? I had a friend of mine say the Gators, they don't have it anymore. They've lost their mojo. They're not what they are. I don't believe that. I think there are people that want that to happen, but hey, Florida last year popped off 3 straight wins at the end of the season and a bowl win. Forget they're on a 4-game winning streak. How many teams in the SEC can say that?
Yeah, no doubt. And with that, we welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, the boss himself, Buddy Martin. Buddy, kind of to backtrack, what did you think of the Gator basketball team tonight?
I mean, what y'all talking about? This is a basketball conference, okay?
The basketball conference.
We don't want
Hey,
to. We got basketball. I'll tell you what,
We're
guys,
talking about football. I mean,
we're covering it all tonight.
when that season comes around, we'll talk about it. But anyway, right now, this is. I mean, I am slap in love with this football team.
Basketball.
Now,
Basketball.
Yes, basketball. So you got me doing it now.
Yeah, well, we're about to talk a little bit of football, but go ahead, have at it.
But the point is I'm sorry to change it. I just got through watching the game, and this morning on Shane's show, I said, "You've heard the person Dale Carnegie, right? Dale Carnegie, probably the second most influential self-help guy. My friend, the late Norman Vincent Peale, being the first." With the power of positive thinking, but what did Dale Carnegie write? A book on how to win friends and influence people. What has happened? I told you on this, Rob, on your show. Right now, what's wrong with college sports? Guys, tell me what's wrong with it. What's wrong with college sports?
it's all about the money. It's all about
transfer,
myself, right? All that stuff. There we go. This Florida basketball team is the antidote. I didn't say anecdote, antidote to all of that because they play just the opposite. They play for each other. They play hard all the time. They dive for balls on the floor. They're a bunch of 3-stars, basically, with 1 4-star, who are playing like there's no tomorrow, and they are kicking everybody's ass as they did tonight. It wasn't even a game after the first 15, well, even not even 10 minutes. I can't even add this up. Laura, maybe you can help me. I couldn't get all the points, but if clubs are Aberdeen and Clayton Jr. and Elijah Martin and Richard add up the points, they got to be over 60, don't they? I mean, I would think. These guards, and that's only because Huff got in low foul trouble early on in the game. He would have had his. These guards, they're a 5-headed monster. They can't even think of words to use to describe them. The announcers can't. Rabbits and those guys, they can't. They keep calling, well, there's a bunch of dudes. Yeah, they're a bunch of dudes, all right. They shoot the eyes of it. Didn't even rebound that great tonight compared to what they normally do. And they play hard, and they are fun to watch. Have you heard anybody ask about NIL deals, the basketball team? No.
So the five guards totaled 63 points between Aberdeen, Richard, Popchar, and the bunch, Clayton,
Martin, So I mean, and
23 for Clayton, 15 for Martin,
and by the way, Clayton
Aberdeen 10
down the last 8 or 9 minutes. Clayton did.
Urban 6 and Brown 4. So.
Yeah, all right. So the deal is that this is, by the way, a team that won 16 games. They weren't exactly like South Carolina, who hadn't won one yet, and they were decent. But when they start knocking those threes start raining, Lauren, they start making those shots, and then they start running on you, and they start moving the basketball, and they start blocking the shots. You dead, basically. Not many teams can overcome. They just suffocate you to death. So it was a really Todd Gullen wants to win every game by 30, right? Well, he had a bad night. He won by 20. So what the heck? So I'm telling you, and I love watching this team play, guys. I love it. I don't miss football that much right now. I love watching this team play. It's fun to watch them. So if you haven't seen them, watch them.
Well, no, I think it's must-see TV now. I mean, as far as the team goes, and I mean, seeing the the way that they play, I think it's a fun brand of basketball to watch, and it reminds you a lot. I would say, buddy, it reminds you of the first national championship under Billy Donovan. Shout out to Billy Donovan as well. Hall of Fame finalist will be announced at the Final Four, which would be neat if the Florida Gators are there at the Final Four. I'm sure Billy Donovan, I think we all would agree, would be based on
he would have been there.
Career,
would have been there.
Shoe in. So, but yeah, I mean, they remind me a lot of the first championship even though that group kind of underachieved and then got hot at the end. But the way they play, kind of workmanlike, sharing the basketball, playing together, they remind me a lot of that team, which will bode well for the bode well for the tournament for sure, no doubt. And we want to talk about Titan MRI serving Gainesville and Lake City under new management. Buddy, you can kind of shed light on that. I talked to the new owner, North Central's Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility, now under new management, going in a lot of different directions with Joe Colorio. Joe was at the softball game. We got to speak to Coach Walton a little bit, and Colorio was there, kind of provided some snacks, things like that for the people there, some of the fans that they got to go and speak with Coach Walton, but doing a lot of great things. And at Titan MRI under new management, serving Gainesville and Lake City.
Well, actually, they're now serving more places than that. They got 3 locations in Gainesville now. They got one in Valdosta. They're going to have one in Ocala, Marion County, eventually. And they're now called it's an old copy there. And they're now going to focus on not just customer service, but more availability. You can still make your appointments and specialized, get it customized at night. But they will be able to take your insurance now, which is something. There's a lot of things that are new there. Titan is expanding in the area. We welcome them, and they are certainly making a lot of noise in the. Lauren, you would know it. You're in that business, but they are really doing well, and I know they're people that you want to know about. If you in that area right there, check them out.
Titan MRI for sure, buddy. We asked to kind of stay on there. I asked Rob this question. You've seen Auburn, you've seen Florida, and where they're trending as basketball teams. Auburn got a big win this weekend down in Tuscaloosa. Do you see? I know you liked Duke for a little bit. I'm not sure if you still like it, Duke. Do you think that Auburn and Florida have started to separate themselves a little bit from the pack? Are they starting to become the cream of the crop, so to speak, or is it's still wide open with maybe 6 or 7 teams in the mix as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, except the fact that they have they still got a ways to go. This is hard to schedule. They're 23-3 now, and they won 5 straight games against ranked teams. It's definitely trending that way, but it's just a trend. And it's not a long way to go yet before it's established. But boy, I tell you, that win on Florida's resume in Auburn looks awfully impressive when you say Auburn's number 1 and Florida's number 2, but number 2 just beat the crap out of number 1 on their own court. So that's kind of way. But nothing really matters. The SEC tournament won't have a bearing on it, but nonetheless, certainly is making a 13 out of 14 teams talking about going to the tournament. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And I just say again, in a period of time when we need something to cheer about, something to get our mind off just the sheer crass part of the business world where everybody's playing for dollars now. It's refreshing to see a bunch of kids diving for balls and playing hard. And by the way, Auburn quite talented and also plays hard. But Todd Golden, is not Bruce Pearl. He didn't come here with that resume. Although he didn't get to work for him. It's a fun time to be able to watch. That's exactly right. They're a fun team to watch, and I, for one, enjoy watching.
All right, well, buddy, we're gonna talk a little football now. You gonna hang in, or you gonna tap out on us?
I'm gonna listen to Zach. I enjoy his work. I will listen to Zach for a minute and let him talk.
All right, so we welcome in from 247, new man on the block, come back to us, spent some time last season in Jacksonville, but with 247 Sports, we welcome in Zach Goodall. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Definitely good to have you on. Glad to have you back in Gainesville, back on the beat. Before we go further, want to give a shout out. I think the uh, the baseball team, the men's baseball team, defeated Jacksonville tonight, 11-4. Another big win. So Kevin O'Sullivan's group off to another great season, starting out great, and some big games coming up. But great start. Seemed like they got some guys hitting the ball. Pitching seems to be in place. So it should be a fun year. So Zach, little news coming out of the Gator office a little bit. Defensive back coach Will Harris, an ace recruiter, has left the program, be heading down to South Florida to
No. He's not going to South Florida.
Well, no. South Florida, buddy. The direction at Miami Hurricanes. That's in South Florida.
He's not going there.
Where's he going?
He's had all that's been. Zach can tell you. It's updated. There's a big story there. Zach, tell him about it. He's going to the NFL.
Oh, okay.
That's the buzz that was on social and then definitely on our message board.
So breaking news with Zach Goodall. Go ahead, Zach. Have that.
Hey, I don't want to be the one that breaks it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, we still don't have clarity exactly as to why Will Harris kind of took a demotion to go to Miami to become safeties coach when he was, while overseeing the cornerbacks, the secondary coach, right? Probably better money. I had it. My understanding was that he was, alongside most of the other coaches, if not all of them, being given an extension even this offseason. And I don't know if it was ever signed necessarily, but he was still under contract for another year. And it seemed as though that an extension was coming his way. So why he ended up leaving, there are plenty of rumors out there, but nothing of substance has really come up. And to that note, I mean, there was the report today from Gabby at 247 and Matt Zenitz that he was at work. He was at Miami today, but you really never know. I mean, the contract, is it signed? Now these rumors with the NFL are about, and I think it's important to note there are still some defensive backs openings and assistant openings, and one that really comes to mind is the New Orleans Saints because of Brandon Staley, the former Chargers head coach who interviewed for the defensive coordinator position there. Now, to my knowledge, he has not yet officially taken that job, but if he is to, all of a sudden, Will Harris has, he's got experience working with Staley from their time in the Chargers, so it would definitely be a logical fit.
Okay, so according to Alan Rubenstein, about 7 hours ago, is leaving for an NFL position is false. So, like you said, he was in Miami today. But so I guess we'll see. The people at Miami are saying it's false. We don't know. We'll see how things shake out. But he left Florida, and can you shed any light on what may have caused that? Obviously there was a lot out there, and Rob, you can maybe echo this without necessarily going somewhere I don't necessarily want to go, but. We've heard everything from the addition of Sunseri may have played a role, or lack of input, or an understanding with Ron Roberts. Have you heard any of that, Zach? And or is it just once again a bunch of rumors floating out there? Because it's very easy, and Rob and I talked about this last week. It's very easy to say, well, that's the reason, but it could be he just has a relationship with Cristobal or something like that. Wanted to go. In a different direction. What have you heard?
That's the thing. I mean, the rumor about maybe a disconnect with Ron Roberts or what those rumors entail, and they've been all over the place. Bottom line is that was before I was covering the team again, so I definitely wasn't there to know firsthand what that could entail. But I look at his statement, right, where he specifically thanked Scott Strickland for the time that they had together in the conversations. And that is, I think, unique. I've never seen an assistant position coach thank an athletic director for a job that they had for a year. But he didn't elaborate. And that's why, I'm trying to keep hands off it until there's a lot more substance as to what may have gone wrong. But the theory about Sunseri and Bala coming in as co-defensive coordinators, maybe there is some truth to that too. I mean, Will Harris, I think he and Gerald Chapman both did a really good job in their first year with the team. I think they improved their rooms compared to the multi-year coaches that were there before them. If I were in that position and I had done such a good job and there was the possibility of taking a co-defensive coordinator role or more responsibilities, maybe more money, I would want it and feel slighted if there was someone that wasn't involved coming in and taking those positions too. So I think it's worth looking at from a bunch of different angles, but ultimately, at least from my perspective, and I think it's mainly because of just me being new here again, I don't have anything solidly confirmed.
Right. Now, according to Corey Knowles from Stadium and Gale, has claimed that Harris has directly messaged him stating his intent to join the NFL, though no official destination or team was confirmed at the time. So, I mean, here we go. I mean, and I mean, that's the beauty of it. So I think that that's one of the things that, we'll see obviously in the next few hours or the next day or so. It will become clear. But what is clear is that Deron Wilson from Arkansas, who was an analyst back in, I think, 2022, is set to take Harris' place. Is that an up? I mean, I don't think it's necessarily an upgrade, but as far as Wilson being someone who's familiar with Billy Napier, played his football at Southern Miss, spent some time at Louisiana. Just what does Wilson bring, to maybe replace Harris, particularly on the recruiting front, where it seems like that seems to be maybe where Harris, I think he did a great job with the secondary and they definitely improved, but did a great job of recruiting guys like Ben Hanks and others. What does Wilson bring to the staff in that role?
Yeah, like on field, I'm reluctant to call it an upgrade, more so because, and granted, like Will Harris coming in from Washington had a lot of great numbers to his backing, but still a very young coach in a totally new environment. No one really was sure what to expect. And I do think that he exceeded expectations when he put together the year that Florida secondary had. So it's tough for me to look at Deron Wilson, who with Arkansas's defensive backs last year, they really struggled. Now the year before, they did a fantastic job, not only just in a vacuum had a good year, but tremendous growth in his first year overseeing the room. But the step back that they took last year was a bit concerning. Now what I do like about Wilson is that he was taken to be a defensive coordinator and a play caller at another school. And while at a much smaller school, different competition, there's still something that other coaches are seeing in this very young coach to suggest that he's a bright mind who can obviously oversee defensive backs and secondaries, but also has earned the trust to call plays. And I know that he had done it before, even at a smaller school at McNeese State, I believe in 20 or 21. And then, right, he had that year coming here to Florida as an analyst and working effectively what the job was that Coach Rasul had under Coach Harris last year as like the assistant cornerbacks coach. But I know that analysts are technically, when Wilson was here, not supposed to do much, but I think we all know that's just not. He played a part. He built relationships with cornerbacks that are still here on this roster, recruits when they would come and visit campus too. So I think, well, it might remain to be seen what he has to offer in this position on the field at a place like Florida or on the trail for that matter. There are some benefits that come with his familiarity, having been in the system, knowing the defensive scheme, and these relationships, right, beyond just the coaching staff. But again, he should know a good few of these players in a lot of these recruiting grounds too. Whereas Arkansas was obviously something a bit different.
Rob, you're pretty familiar with, Ron Roberts. You were, singing his praises as he made the kind of came over from Auburn. Have you, I mean, as far as what you know, and I know you've been pretty positive with the work that he's been able to do, and I don't follow you didn't see the staff turnover as far as assistants under him or anything like that. I know he was only at Auburn for a short time, but I mean, as far as being able to conduct himself and with the assistants, I don't think that was ever an issue, was it?
I think he's pretty tough to work with. I mean, I've heard people say things that, and I don't know if he was the one who only, people will tell you he got let go at Auburn because he only rushed 2 on the fourth and 31. I mean, and I don't know, whoever's responsible for that should never be allowed to coach again and should never be able to have a job But no, I think he's a good coach, but I do think he's kind of tough to. I mean, a lot of really successful people are so driven, and they have that just hard ass, just driven mentality. They're perfectionist. I don't care who you're a fan of. If you don't admire what Nick Saban did at Alabama, you're kind of crazy. In fact, the SEC misses him big time. So if Ron Roberts is tough to work with because he's demanding and expects a lot out of everybody around him, so be it. And if they want to whine, go get another job somewhere else. Go to the mall and sell pet food. Tough shit.
Right.
We don't need you on the staff.
Right. And I think what
I think he's great.
Right. Yeah. And you've always been very complimentary. I think the thing, buddy, is that just is a little concerning is for a team, and we talked about it, that was getting ready to take the next step. I think that those that understand football and understand how this thing works were maybe looking for some continuity, not just in the roster, which really didn't lose much, but also in the coaching staff. So the concern is that, there could be some issues because, a guy like Will Harris, who was so respected, and now all of a sudden it's staff was in place. You got Mike Peterson re-signed. You keep Billy Gonzalez. You got Jabbar Jalute, getting an upgrade. And then now Will Harris leaves, right around the time where you're starting to kind of get the installs going and what you want to, accomplish for the spring. But you've been through this quite some time. Is it a concern?
Well, yes, it is. But here's the deal. And Zach can tell you this. We don't get to know these guys very well. I was blessed to cover the teams back in the days when I actually had relationships with the assistant coaches. I mean, not that was anything special. It was just a different time. Can you believe this, Zach? Back in the day when Steve Spurrier's offensive coordinator, Ed Kinsler, was calling plays and running the offense, I'd go out with him on a Friday night before the game and drink beer, and he'd tell me the whole game plan, every bit of it. And I would print it naturally. But this not just make me a big deal. It's just how the times have changed. Now you can't get them you can't even call them on the phone. They're not allowed to talk on the phone. And as you know, Lauren and others, if you dare speak to somebody at practice that you're not have an appointment with, you get chewed out by people.
Right.
So, it's just a different way. So, Zach, how do we get to evaluate these guys? How do we know? We have one way. We certainly can't do it by practice, watching for 5 seconds. You have to go to the games, watch the games, talk, listen to the press conference, whatever Billy wants to tell you. Look at the comments afterwards, ask some of the other players, and make your evaluation on a very scant amount of evidence. You don't really know. I don't know how good Will Harris was. I heard during the season, oh, boy, he's doing a great job with TV. Then next thing I know, I hear he's on the outs. And I just don't know. And I know this much. And being around coaching staffs for 60 years, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be people leaving, people are going to get fired. There's going to be competition. Look, the well-known story is, and I can't document it, I've had enough people confirm it, Percy Harvin actually got in a fight with an assistant coach at Florida. You know what I'm talking about? And actually, Urban Meyer didn't back the coach. That's why he left. And so, so it's a different day, different time. Zach, I'd like to know how you get your information filtered, because you get good information. You listen, you read, you talk to people, and you gather. Explain that process.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it coming from a legend to let me know that I got it. I listen and I read big time. That, like you mentioned, that is something that's why I do what I do. I just fell in love with doing both of those things and absorbing information as much as possible. Whether that's someone else's article on the team, or if I can get my hands on, now, not to say that I have Florida's 2024 playbook, but older playbooks, right? Getting to, or even old coaching clinics, like Billy Napier and his coaching staff have what feels like dozens of coaching clinics available on YouTube or different places. I try and go and absorb that, for one, to get my understanding as to what the coaches are looking for or what they're trying to install. gathering information this day and age, you're right, it's so tough, and you've got to like read between the lines in the press conferences, because these coaches and these players, they're trained. They know what they can and can't say and what they should and shouldn't say on the record compared to what they can say amongst their peers. You got to really read between the lines as to what they're saying, and then from there, the relationships that you do establish. And while it's tougher to maybe get phone numbers and such these days, what's great is Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it, connecting with them on there. I mean, you do, at least from my perspective, I would go to these recruiting camps or even these practices, right, that we shouldn't be taking much stock in, but I would record plays of player X, Y, and Z, and coach might say to me, hey, great clip. I would love to use that. Like, they have all their cameras in the world, but like sometimes you'll just get a better angle, right? And they're like, hey, like, I would love to check that out and use this to teach the players. Could you send that to me? And then boom, there's a connection right there. And players are even the same way. Like if you get photos, videos of them, or you're there, you're a presence, right? You're there at every press conference, every game, and you make the effort to at least, say, hey, in this day and age, even though these guys are, they've got every resource in the world, they're online where they've got tens of thousands of people interacting with them. Sometimes those little interactions with the people that are really not, I don't want to say in their life, but I mean, on a day-to-day, like I'm around them enough that I am, like those do seem to still go a long way. This media environment, I know it just it is fractured, and it can be sometimes really tough to navigate, but sometimes it just goes back to even like some of the practices that I'm sure you've used before, and maybe trying to find new ways to apply them too, with especially young kids who at this point have way more of a spotlight on them than ever
That's
before.
good. Lord, I just want to say real fast that Zach is an exceptional, because I'm not one who likes to rain on the parade of every young person. I was that way one time too, and I always thought you started out, at the top, and you would be famous overnight. And I didn't realize till it was by the year end, it's going to be a lot of hard work, and I might get lucky enough to get people to pay me to do this. And the thing is that look, I just interviewed a young man. He's a nice guy, very bright, has promise, maybe wants to write. So I said, call me, let's talk about what you want to do. And he said, I love writing, I love what. I said, okay. So, well, tell me who you read. There was a silence. I said, well, I mean, who you listen to, you read? He says, well, I like Stephen A. Smith. Well, Stephen A. Smith was a writer now.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely. Good writer. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I said, well, name these. He could not name me one person who writes that he reads, yet he wants to be a writer.
Right.
I bet you if I asked Zach that question, he'd give me 3 names right off the bat. So who do you read, Zach? Give me some names.
Graham Hall, Blake Alderman, Edgar Thompson.
3 really good ones.
There you go. Yeah, really no doubt.
I mean, the whole beat. But I mean, I've been reading Edgar since before I even started covering Florida already.
Edgar's, shout out to Edgar Thompson, good dude. Zach, I want to get a couple things, and speaking of it, buddy, I want to and I know you can appreciate this, maybe even Brendan before. I want to give a shout out just because I think sometimes we don't see the behind the scenes people, and just to kind of maybe put this in a box, there's a guy named Jacque Stone that is working with women's basketball. I don't know if you've seen, Zach, the Unlaced. They talked about, you saw the video when we were at the thing at Spurrier's. You remember and just the work that he's doing, got a regional Emmy for his work there. And, just talking about a good young guy from the Lakeland area, Florida grad, that's been able to really, in this world of NIL and money hungry, Rob, being able to tell the personal stories of those women. They just came out with the Rashea Kyle, who was a WNBA prospect, as well as Paige Clausen, who worked her way up from a walk-on, kind of a fan favorite, to now, earning a scholarship. But just a shout out to Stone and the work that he's doing with the women's basketball team. But I do want to ask you, Zach, you were here, things were looking a little different. You go away for a year, as we kind of finish up, how does it look now to you? What does Zach Goodall think after, obviously you were still watching from afar, but now you're back into it and you're seeing it from, face value. What the 6 and the 5 and 7 season, and then now to what you saw the 8 and 5 season, and then now where things stand as you return back to the Florida Gator beat.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, I think is probably the way to put it. Like at the end of the day, I mean, to go on the streak that they did at the end of the season, there's two ways to look at it. One, it's the first time Billy Napier's ever beaten 3+ major FBS opponents in his time at Florida. And to the average Florida fan, that's gross, right? But at the same time, that's not, I mean, that is a serious peak. And to do it 4 times even there at the end of the year, it was football unlike we've seen it under this staff. And I have my questions, truthfully, about game management still to this point. I think that was still apparent last year. I think that it's Billy Napier making the decision to remain his own play caller at this point is I'm trying to think of an idiom or a way to call it, but basically like he's made his bed and now it's time to lay in it. He is a firm believer that things are moving in the right direction, which I would say, and most people should agree, I think they are. Clearly, based on the way things ended last year, to have an established, as a rising sophomore, yet an established starting quarterback, someone who seems like he's going to be here for his entire college career, considering just last night, DJ Lagway started a foundation with UF Health. To me, that seems like he's not going anywhere anytime soon, coaching change or not. This guy's committed to being here. To have, I think, depth really solidified it. A lot of positions, or even if you want to look at it as where are the first team holes on this roster? The last 3 off seasons, there were the complaints of, well, we didn't attack the portal enough. We didn't get enough star players, or starting caliber, maybe I should say. They didn't really have to do that this offseason. And while I understand fans might want more, it's because of players that are rising as sophomores, redshirt sophomores, the fewer transfer portal losses that they endured this year compared to, you can see that from a roster building, things are starting to come together. It, to me, comes down to, because you have those pieces in place, right? You've got a franchise quarterback, let's call him. 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen returning. I think 2 to 3 at minimum capable running backs and a pretty deep receiver room with a lot of versatile, different kinds of talents. Defensive line has 2 projected draft picks coming back rather than going pro. Linebacker core is stacked top to bottom with young talent and some veterans as well. Secondary, you might find some holes, but if you're looking at an entire roster and you walk away with, okay, like this one group is where I have some questions, you're thinking, wow, that's a pretty good roster. So what's going to happen on the other side? What's going to happen with, will offensive play calling continue to hamper the offense in some critical moments? Will special teams, while they got better last year, still sometimes have their flare-ups with issues that really should not be happening? I think that penalties got better last year. Will that be something that remains the same, or will they get even better this year than last? That's kind of where all my questions are. We've got 3 years of, proof kind of being in the pudding as to game management with this team. The talent is not the question anymore. To me, it's, can the talent overcome, or can the coaches overcome their own issues when it comes to game day operations? And to give Billy Napier some credit, while there have been a couple of changes to the staff this offseason, I feel as though they've really kept a lot of the same thing together for the first time, and like from head to toe. That is, you would hope, a sign of consistency that should elevate the coaching staff on game days. But that's really just kind of where my questions lie.
Sounds good. Rob, you agree with Zach in that frame?
Yeah, Zach's right, because the Gators, here's what you do. I've said this for long, 30, 40 years. Too many athletes are known for the size of their contracts, not for their game-saving tackles, playing with a broken tibia, diving into the stands for balls, and sacrificing and putting the team first. And I think Again, I'm looking at it as an outsider. We do sidelines. We talk about all 16 of the teams. I'm an Auburn grad. I'm harder on Auburn. We got to take football from a club sport to a varsity sport at Auburn. It's been a while, But what you got at Florida, and I think it's tough for Florida people to want to say this right now, you got a bunch of guys that actually want to be there. And I know that that's the underlying story. And I think Zach just knocked it out of the park. He really did. And what Buddy said about these relationships, I remember in college going down there, they'd say, take this notepad down there, get some quotes from Coach Dye. I mean, it was just like, some of these guys were scared to ask him questions. It made me think, you better ask a good one, because he's going to look at you like you're an idiot. But I thought that was a cool interaction. And don't you think, Lauren, what Buddy said to Zach, and Zach, you're listening and you're getting a lot of information. I think that, I don't know how old you are, 25 or whatever, maybe. Okay. You're 25? 26. Okay. I've 26. Got kids your age, but you're doing it right. And I would keep listening to him. And Lauren, I thought this was one of the best interactions we've had. I haven't seen many young reporters that have what you have. And I commend you for it. I'm glad. And when this guy's talking to you, he always acts like, it's no big deal. I think what he says is as relevant today as if Mickey Mantle got out of the grave and started playing again. It's that big a deal.
Right. Well, before I send it to Buddy, I do want to say, Zach, I got to know Zach based on a lot of those kind of poignant conversations where we're comparing notes and kind of comparing what we see and how we feel about things. But yeah, I mean, Zach, to have Zach back on the beat will be better for Gator fans as a whole. I like working with him, and we'll definitely have him on more. Glad to have him back. But I mean, I think we've always talked about it. We got a really good group of people that come on and help make this show what it is. And Zach, you already know I appreciate you coming on. And with that, buddy, we want to give you the last word on a lot that's been happening. A lot of exciting things going on. You can take it back to basketball if you want, because I think that's going to be exciting. But just as a whole, it's an exciting time and a lot to be excited about. I mean, and we haven't even gotten into the other sports, but we keep it about the main thing with basketball and football and some of the other sports. There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to be that get off your lawn guy, because that's not how I think, how I feel. As you know, I've always actually embraced young people and love working with them. Guys like Zach inspire me. I mean, I was with Graham when he first started. Zach, I love seeing him come up to the ranks and do well. And I just wish more people understood that you don't come out of college and become Stephen A. Smith overnight. It takes a minute to do that. But that's okay. That's youth for you. And that's okay. Listen, we all make those incorrect assumptions young in life. But yeah, thank you, Zach, for what you bring to us, and keep up what you're doing and set your example for your youngsters beneath you coming up. Let them follow you. That's what I love about Graham and Zach. And I always tell Zach, you can be the man. You can blaze the way. You can set examples for other people. And I think that's wonderful. Just a final thought without getting too mired in the back in my day stuff. I just sit here and thinking about Franz Beard, and I've told this story probably 30 times on this show. When Florida won their national championship in Miami, we got done at 2:00 in the morning. Myself, Franz Beard, and a photographer, Tim Casey, went to, I think it was like one of these Benny, what is it? Nighttime breakfast places in Miami. And I
Huddle
said,
House.
Denny's, Shoney's.
It was it's one of the well-known ones. I can't think of it.
House.
Oh, it was no Waffle House. Anyway, that's a Georgia thing, and I do like Waffle House, but this wasn't it. The point being that we were there at 2:00 in the morning, and suddenly it hit me how lucky and how blessed I had been to be there to see this another national championship team play and walk away from it. And I said this to Franz, and Franz has quoted a bunch of times. I'm going to say it to you, Zach. that I said to them, enjoy this. It doesn't last forever. It'll be here today and gone tomorrow. And it went away and never came back. And all these rookies you hear saying, well, I went to the Sugar Bowl, the Super Bowl my first year, and I thought I was going to play there for another 10 years, never made it back. I go now to the basketball team and say, this is something really special. 23-3, ranked second in the country, going to make some noise in the March Madness. You can compare them to the 04s or not, I don't care. But the joy of watching something like this should be ultimate goal for all of us in the business. And I guarantee you, if you drill down on all of us, we're all little boys at heart in that respect. We love going to the ballpark and watching greatness. It's just a great thing, and it'll be with you your whole life. So keep doing it. Keep carrying the flame. Proud of you, Zach. Keep doing that, and I'll say goodbye. And I got to business. I got to do the commercial on Renstar Medical. Thanks a lot.
Well, yeah, so appreciate it, buddy. Always great words, Zach. Appreciate you, man. Have a good evening, and appreciate you, and definitely have you back on for sure if you bless us with that.
Without a doubt, anytime. Right. Thank you guys so much for having me and for the kind words. Seriously, it means the world.
All right, man. Glad to have you back, Zach. Appreciate it. That's Zach Goodall of 24/7 Sports. Rob, appreciate you, man. And say goodnight to Rob. And Buddy will go ahead and talk about Renstar Medical Research. Your good friends there in Ocala, the great work they do at Renstar Medical Research.
Yeah, it's something that if you're in this business, so you know how important clinical research is. And I didn't realize when I first started doing these spots, and they've been my sponsor for years, that when it's like going out to report your own story and getting your own facts, just don't take it off the shelf. They put all these clinical research facilities in, and you can help me explain this, Lauren. You should get together and you all let's say there's something going on, whooping cough, okay, what it might be. And you say, all right, you're all going to meet here, and we're going to do this. We're all going to take these pills, but one of us is going to take a different color pill or whatever, the placebo, whatever.
Yes, placebo.
And at the end, you see how it trended. And the information you get then is used in that clinical research. When you go to these companies and give them the data, it all goes there. It's pure demographics and information. They do a great job in that regard. They've done over 800 of these things, and they do it right there in Ocala, Florida, and they got an office down in Tampa, etc. And plus, they're great people. Joe Sorrentino, my good friend, and his teammate, his partner, Mary Brantley. Yes, she's married to Scott Brantley. God bless him. I hope he's going to be okay.
Yeah, shout out to Scott for sure. Yeah. Get well soon, Scott.
So anyway, so Renstar Medical Research, and we like to say this, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. And with that, we say good night on the Tuesday edition. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. Always good to see you. And this was Tell It Like It Is Tuesday on the Tuesday night edition with Buddy Martin. Good night and God bless.